This podcast is not intended to provide any investment advice. The opinions expressed here by either the hosts or guests do not necessarily reflect the views of PSA, Collectors Holdings, or any of their affiliates. Any discussion of collectible values in the past or present is not a guarantee of future performance.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the PSA Pod. Ryan Greene and Jack Archer. We've got a very special guest here today. We're going to get right into it. We are excited to welcome Darren Rovell to the studio, sports business reporter for the Action Network. But just saying that kind of feels like it's selling it a bit short. For years, the leading voice of all things sports business related. But Darren is also a collector, and especially in the growing market of ticket collecting, and especially PSA graded tickets, as we're looking at an incredible spread in front of us right now on the table. Darren, first off, thanks for taking the time today. We're excited to have you.
It's awesome to physically be here in Santa Ana.
Yeah, Darren rolled up to this meeting with a shoebox that was essentially a museum. And it's incredibly impressive to see all this in person.
Yeah, this carry-on definitely made me nervous.
It makes me nervous just seeing it here on the table. I mean, we'll get into some of these.
I do see myself as kind of like a Johnny Appleseed, or I'm shepherding this ticket market and convincing people why it's so great. So it does behoove me to kind of like actually bring it, and like pictures don't really do justice.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's talk about how you got here. Your background as a collector, obviously now you're really big into tickets. What got you to that point and then really got you into this segment of memorabilia collecting?
I've always kind of been like an arbitrage type of guy, right? Like, what are people not seeing? I've always been a natural scarcity over false scarcity guy. I was a card collector until 1992, the natural end of, being upset after 89, realizing for the first time that we were the limited edition of 1989 Upper Deck was a interesting definition. So I stopped. My high school years were no cards, and then I was completely out of cards and never really got back in until COVID. I just tried to do like a PSA 1 set of great cards, and that was it. But I've always been a collector. I've always believed in putting money in asset classes when your bank gives you nothing, and the stock market, and I was at CNBC for 6 years, is unclear what the rules are and how they're played. So I wanted to put my money into something. And when I found out that PSA graded tickets, to me, that was something where you could look up the populations, and there were these intricacies that were amazing. One, you could play kind of the arbitrage game by, if unlike a card, like you could write on a label, if it was accurate, you could change the label, and the label would be something that may be a little bit more meaningful. Like the Wepner-Ali fight, you could write inspiration for Rocky. There's additional value that you're creating through that. And then just to see, as you go into the market, the affirmation of how rare some of these things are, and the unique situations, like the Randy Johnson blows up a bird game. There's literally 3,000 to start, and who's keeping that? And just tickets in general had no place to go. What was it going to be on the bulletin board or on the fridge? Even the kids who had foreseen the future of this being collectible, asking for your tickets for $5 at the end of a game, they didn't even make it here. So, realizing that I am making a list of 100, and then I'm going to cross it off, and then like it takes me 3 years to get a Doug Flutie Hail Mary. The affirmation that I wanted kept coming up, like yes every time, and I just got deeper and deeper and deeper, and I love the market, and I'm glad that PSA's gotten into this, because it certainly made the market more valuable and the first time collectible.
They look so presentable in our cases too, just real pieces of history.
Yep.
All right, Darren, let's get choosy.
Okay.
You have some incredible tickets in front of you. I know your collection spans far and wide. You can only choose 3 Grail tickets to keep. Which 3 tickets are they going to be?
One of them's one that I'm selling, and I'm confident I'll get one back again. but Marilyn singing Happy Birthday to JFK.
Okay.
I'm selling in Sotheby's at the end of the month. I just needed to create room for more, and that will sell at a price that will give me more, but I will eventually get another one. So that's one. Two, I love the Ferris Bueller Day Off ticket just because of the intricacies of how you figure out that that was his day off. So Claudell Washington hit a foul ball that Ferris caught, so you know that. And then you're like, okay, the Braves only played at Wrigley 6 games that year. And how do you figure out when Claudell Washington fouled the ball off? Well, Lee Smith is the pitcher and Lee Smith's the closer. So now you have to figure out how many games Braves, Cubs, Lee Smith, pitched in. And then you get to the 11th inning of a 5-3, 4-3 game on June 5th, 1985. And that becomes Ferris, his actual day off. And that's just cool as hell. And then there's the game that they filmed it at, which was against the Montreal Expos in September. But I want the day off. I don't want the filming. So that's a cool one that I love because it's just so weird and crazy. I think the weird and the different gets the same reaction as the unbelievable. So Ed Sullivan last performance on Ed Sullivan by the Beatles gets as much wow as the Randy Johnson Bird ticket.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh my God. And that's what's so crazy. Like in cards, you're usually not going to get the wow with the 52 mantle with a LeBron RPA. It just doesn't happen. And here it's almost like the cool or the wacky. So I got my submission back today, and it has one of the coolest ones, which is, and I'm a movie guy, so it's the actual game that Biff knew in the almanac from Back to the Future. And and what's great about it is, like, the person who put it on eBay that I bought it for $200 for, must have been really weirded out because he was selling all these UCLA Bruins tickets and they were going for $9.99 and this went for $200. Must have said to himself, well, what's this?
What am I missing?
So there's also, as a guy who loves kind of like arbitrage, what you see, what you don't, what people know, what they don't, tickets are also great too. And, you think you watch something and then you go find the ticket. It's given me great joy.
It's treasure hunting.
Yeah.
Frankly, It's modern treasure hunting. If someone has a LeBron RPA, they know what they have. They might not know what they have with this, and it just makes it so.
You can also
cool.
find it all day long. If I'm looking for a card, for the most part, I can find it. And with a ticket, the hunt is the hunt, and it's crazy. And you have to try it. And then with the ticket, sometimes now card people are coming along to tickets. They've found kind of some of their comfort in debuts. I believe in moments, but I don't think anyone, whatever they want to do, that's fine. But, card people are getting there. It's interesting to see, what they look at, what they don't. Obviously, the grading is very, very unique. Sometimes you look at a ticket and you're like, that's a 10 and it's a 1.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that go along with it. But it's, as far as looking up tickets and scarcity and reasons why things are scarce and not, there's just fascinating stories about, the Bartman ticket. It's an NLCS ticket from 2003. It's not, you wouldn't think it would be rare, but then you realize there were 99% Cubs fans in Wrigley Field. And are they keeping that curse of a ticket in their house? Are fans, Cavs fans in the Richfield Coliseum keeping the Jordan over Elo? No. I mean, so there's a whole bunch of things that just really work out. And the hunt is as amazing as when you get it.
It's all incredibly cool, especially seeing it laid out in front of us right here. All right, so aesthetically, I think these are beautiful too, especially like the vintage baseball stuff is incredible.
And also you also get the occasional ad on the back. So the 1980, first of all, you look at the ticket price. So George Brett's Pine Tar game from 1983, and people are like, why does it say $675 for season field level box? I go, that's for the season. It's not for the game. Now that's $3,000 for the game. That season, $675, and then you turn it over, and it has the Michelob ad, which is so 1983 it hurts, right? Like the Doug Flutie ticket has, of course, defunct Eastern Airlines, and so there's so much to making the tickets art that it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. Comic books have a similar thing with the ads on the back too.
Absolutely.
So my favorite personal ticket that's like attainable for me is the 1996 Allen Iverson debut. It's got this really dramatic die cut. It's incredible.
Right. So that one, and not only is it that it's really the only modern debut with two Hall of Famers having their debut, Ray Allen and Allen Iverson. And the reason why that ticket is so incredible, and I have 4 of them, and I usually do not have, and it is attainable. You could get a good one for $1,500. Like, what card could you get, for $1,500 that you're like, wow, this is history? They were opening up the Core State Center, and this was just happened to be the first game. So they did it for the Flyers and the Sixers. And you see a young Allen Iverson and it's an amazing ticket in this monstrous slab. And it is one of my favorite tickets too. I mean, that's why I have 4 of them.
Aesthetically, do you have a favorite ticket? Just purely visually, not taking into account the value, the moment, the player, anything like that, just purely visually.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, I'm looking at right now game 1 of the 1955 World Series where Jackie steals home. Like, look at the colors. Especially, the Cubs and the Yankees, especially the Cubs in the 30s and 40s, the Babe Ruth called shot ticket, the 1945 game 4 of the 1945 World Series, which is when the GOAT showed up at Wrigley, which is people laugh like you got the ticket for the actual curse that happened, which was active until 2016. I mean, I just love everything. My Flying Goal ticket has writing on the back, and it's like, that's also beautiful. Like, you saw writing on the back of a card, you'd be like, no, not at all. But like, someone wrote, because all it says is Game 7, and they wrote May 10th, 1970, or goal, sudden death. And then you can get, as a storyteller, as someone who is obsessed with stories, it allows me to, take people into a labyrinth of, hey, the Or Flying Goal story, that picture, the photographer who took that, Ray Lucier, was a backup photographer, and he only got the shot because the main photographer got up to go to the concession stand, and Orr scored it so fast that he wasn't back. Like, it allows you to tell these stories. And it's crazy when I do see something on eBay and I realize what it is, like the first Monday Night Football game, and it's a television pass. Howard Cosell could have worn that. I mean, I don't know. I'm just I'm in love with all this stuff, and the only issue is stopping. How do you keep going, and what do you do? And you, like cards, you build all these sets.
We all deal with it on the card side.
Yeah, you build all these sets. So last appearance by. So I have Pat Tillman's last game. I have Len Bias's last game. I have Chris Farley's last Saturday Night Live appearance. So you build all those sets and you don't stop.
Some of the best stories with vintage baseball cards is when these cards that have been packed away for years get unearthed. Someone passed it down, and you get these great treasure trove stories. Do you feel like we're going to start seeing a lot of that with tickets? I mean, people saved these for years, and like you gave the example of the Or goal. People for years would write on the back of it, and maybe throw it in a shoebox, throw it in a drawer. Do you think as people get more knowledge of what tickets can be worth from iconic and past events, we're going to start hearing more of these stories of people unearthing those?
Yeah, because people, but I mean, what's funny is that the few people, and I say the few because it's still a small part of the collecting world and a small part of PSA's business, but I think it will be growing, is that we hear when someone finds something.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's as easy as, I did a story on just an incredible story on the 25th anniversary of Jordan's flu game. And when I'm doing that, we find this great story of this guy who Nike executives took him. He had just lost his father, and Nike executives took him. And then I'm doing the story, and I'm like, "You still got the ticket?" And he says, "Yes."
Wow.
And I'm like, "All right." And so there are these discoveries, but I feel like people are willing to write a whole lot more about the attic discovery of the T206s, versus these discoveries which happen and the ticket world goes nuts, but it's so small. But as it gets bigger, I mean, I think there is no doubt about it that these are collectible. The fact that PSA grades them and that they give pop reports. I spend a long time with pop reports. Sometimes I'm confused by how many there are, right? Don Larson, perfect game. I don't have one because everyone's grandfather said save it, right? So it's like 160, right? Woodstock I got just to get, but there was just a pile of those tickets all over the place. I got it because I was so annoyed by people saying, "Do you have a Woodstock?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the most graded ticket of all time. It's like 3,000 of them."
I especially love tickets for categories that don't have a sports counterpart. I see you have a NASA ticket on there. Is there any other categories like movies you mentioned?
Yeah, movies right now are moving up. Now, it's interesting, I there's a lot of Japanese debuts. Japanese would write premiere on it and they'd have pictures and they'd be beautiful. I like the 1985 mini stubs because that goes back to people, just like people resonate with, that was the card when I was 7 and I put in the spokes of the bicycle or whatever. I resonate with how crappy the movie tickets were. And so I had to find a Ferris Bueller. Impossible. I found one, right? But then this is what the card people are very uncomfortable with, this land of no comps.
Yeah.
That's the biggest jump to the ticket world, right? Like, so I find the Doug Flutie. Okay. I've been looking for it for 2.5 years. The guy says, "What do you pay?" It hasn't surfaced for 2.5 years. There's no comp. The only thing that I can do is I can offer a number that I have to basically guess his bank account. And if he says no and walks away, I don't get it. And card people are so used to, well, it last sold yesterday.
Yeah,
for
define
this.
market.
That's what excites me. That's what excites me. But I understand where card people, that's a significant jump for them.
One of the other things we always hear from card people when it comes to tickets is they don't quite make that connection of, why would I want a ticket of an event I wasn't at? Right.
You were at it though.
Exactly.
Right. So I have 5 1994 Game 5 NBA Finals. The OJ chase.
Yeah.
Was I at that game? No, but I was at that game. I mean,
remember that.
I know where I can close my eyes. I could tell you what my mom was serving for dinner. Okay. So that's the thing. It's not my ticket, but like, it's good enough for Ali Wepner that Stallone was in the crowd, and from that he built Rocky.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to be there. And that is definitely one of the first responses. Is it your ticket? Did you see it?
Yeah.
It's like, but then it's also like, okay, so the Michael Jackson first moonwalk ticket comes up. It's a 1 of 1. And you think to yourself, okay, let me see that video. You go to the video and you're like, oh my God, it's people. Think about how many dance moves have been done. It's people going, what? How did he do that? Did he just walk on air? Like, and that ticket was in. Now, card people also have it's got to be a full, can't be a stub. And then I'm like, well, a stub was in there.
Exactly.
A stub saw it. So like, again, card people are over index on debuts. I like moments. So there's a lot of things. I just want more card people to look into this. I know they'll love the scarcity of it. And just the aesthetics, what these things look like, the color. I go to National every year and I probably sell 4 tickets and I don't care. I see myself as a steward, but I can tell you something, that the time stopped at my booth is over indexes with others.
Yeah.
Because I don't have 100 Luka Doncic base prisms or whatever. Like, it stops you by how crazy, when you see the first ticket for the first day at Disneyland, you have to stop.
That is unbelievably cool. I'm with you completely, Darren. I never understand why card collectors have some type of issue for not being there. It's like, you collect Joe DiMaggio cards. You weren't even alive when he was playing baseball.
Yeah,
like, what's the issue?
Right.
Do you have a favorite from an event that you attended that like maybe adds not only just value, but it has sentimental value?
I have my press pass from the Beijing games, and I have Kobe's participant pass from it. And I was on the plane home with Kobe, and I was very close with Kobe. That is the one thing I will bury with me or give to my children. Just non-negotiable, not sellable. So that's one that, and then, I have been able to holster my press passes, not to sell, but just cool. A 23-year-old me at Brady's for a Super Bowl. It's the time capsule. It's great.
Time capsule's a perfect way to put it. One thing I saw recently, Buster Shear, who runs like a big Instagram account. Great dude. He was at the Knicks game when Steph broke the 3-point record. We have LeBron coming up on the all-time points record. Are there any categories that you think people will look to as a collecting vehicle outside of sports and think of it like a souvenir? Or do you think
I don't know, it just stinks to me like how modern day tickets are not going to happen, and if they happen, will they be printed after the game? I mean, that was,
you got to jump through hoops to get it too.
Yeah. I lost my phone, is not powered down. Like, first of all, they're ugly. They're straight up. There's no design on it.
Ticketmaster.
Yeah, it's just garbage. And and then the question is, can teams print out tickets beforehand? And if they're not to be used to enter, PSA deem them not really collectible because you couldn't enter with them. I'm upset that there's not 20-year-olds and under that will get into this, because it will be all digital tickets, and it's bad to take out an age class. I wish the physical tickets were there, but I think that Broadway shows, I think movie tickets for sure. PSA has graded opening weekends recently, which have value. It has the same type of nostalgia, if not more, than cards. And I love that it's real scarcity. False scarcity is kind of like, okay, well, it's a Prism and it's 105. Panini decided that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they decided that. This is decided by the population of things that weren't thrown out, which is, by the way, PSA is doing that with the older cards. But like, there's so much focus on the number. It's a 1 of 1. It was created if something's a 1 of 1, like the Michael Jackson, it's that the moonwalk became so much more famous, and everyone who had that ticket threw it out.
Yeah. What I'm looking at this spread on the table, and I see a lot of different grades. Do you have like a scale personally between, do you ever just authenticate an item? Yep. Do you have, if it's going to grade below this? So everybody has their scale.
Card people want to see the grades. And that also shocked me, because I had 1,000 tickets. Card people get in front of it and they're like, well, what grade is that? And then what grade does that, and I had a great piece of luck in that I had the highest graded Tiger Woods first round to a PGA tournament. And I was able to sell that, based on the card grading. And then otherwise, I'm fine with authentic, right? Like, there are 3 or 4 of the Rocky inspiration fights. The grade doesn't really matter. There are 4 of us who have it, and no 2 will ever be up at the same time.
Yeah.
So with the rare things, the ore is, a 1 MK. Like, the Beatles one doesn't, for Ed Sullivan, has tape marks on it. For the rare stuff, I don't care, but I know some card people do.
Yeah.
And, I think that with ticketing, there's got to be, there's some where I thought it was going to be a 7 and it was a 2. And I don't think in cards it's the same, but because it's obviously a lot more refined. So I don't, I think tickets are going to evolve with the grading, with what people want, but I think it's all good, and I think it's all going to be going up. It just makes so much sense.
So last show we discussed our collecting goals for 2023. What are your collecting goals on the ticket side? And are there any must-have tickets you're trying to make a priority in the near future?
Well, I've said this before. I have not revealed my top 100 list, but I have about 93 of them. And I've said this before, so I'm not scared to say it. There are 3 tickets that I've been going after. The Titanic leaving the
wow.
There is not one graded of the Titanic, like a ticket to the actual going on the Titanic, but leaving the shipyard, there is one. I've been trying to get that, because that's the ultimate, like, forget about it.
That's incredible.
I've tried to get I do have, and I'm willing to tell this for the first time, I just submitted to PSA a membership booklet from the 1961 Cavern Club in Liverpool, That will be Beatles concert number 1.
Wow.
So I have that, but I am looking for Beatles Ed Sullivan, the first one, and I've offered more than $100,000, and the guy has turned me down. And then the other one, again, it's so funny. These are pop culture. The other one I looked at was the last performance of Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens, the literal day the music died.
Wow.
And there's one guy that has 2 of them that is holding on to dear life. So, but it's great to try to, I want to get pieces that make people go, oh, wow.
Happened to me when I looked in your box earlier and I saw the Enchantment Under the Sea ticket from Back to the Future. It's like, you don't see that ever. Didn't even know that existed.
Hey, Chuck, listen to this.
There's no explanation needed. Like with cards, sometimes if you're speaking to a non-card person, hey, it's a case hit. These fall, like these are only available. It's serial numbered. There's a lot of explanation needed.
There's 13 different colorways.
Yeah, this is much more direct.
It's one of one, but it's one of one of a set of 5 one of ones.
I'm looking at Shaq's ID card from LSU.
Very
I know
simple.
Exactly what that is.
Very simple.
That Titanic leaving, like,
unbelievable. Well, Darren, we can't thank you enough, not only for joining us today, but for really being a champion for this corner of the hobby, because it really is growing, and the history attached to it, I think, is something that everyone can connect with.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank PSA for recognizing it as a category and doing the job that they've done in it.
Awesome. Encasing history. It's fun.
Yeah, thank you again for taking the time. We hope to speak with you again, and can't wait to see what more grails you bring us, because I'm just blown away right now.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, for Jack Archer, I'm Ryan Greene. Thank you again to Darren Rovell. We will talk to you again next time here on the PSA Pod.